Welcome back, GlamFam. It's your girl, Angela Denise, and I am back with a ranking video. And today, honey, it is all about eyeshadow palettes. Today, we're going to be ranking all of the eyeshadow palettes that I tested out during the year of 2021. So in 2021, I tried out a total of 14 eyeshadow palettes. Now, I did not include the Natasha Denona Glam face palette because that is a face palette, not really a, I'm not going to consider it in this ranking video. So 14 palettes we tried out for the year in a range of price points. This was actually harder than I thought it would be. There were so many good palettes that released in 2021. And before we dive into the video, I want to give a big shout out to one of my OG subscribers, Locked AF. Thank you, girl, for supporting me and always engaging with my content. So in my number 14 spot, it was real easy. My least favorite palette that I tried out in 2021 was the Fenty Beauty Bum Posse eyeshadow palette. Now, I do not have it anymore because I don't want my makeup collection to get too out of control. So if it's a product that I just literally do not like, then I'm definitely going to take it back. So one of the things that I remember about the Bum Posse eyeshadow palette was the matte shades were all right, but the shimmer and metallics, There are eyeshadows at a cheaper price point that performed better, and I want to say there was a $50 eyeshadow palette. So there was no way in the world that I was going to keep that eyeshadow palette when I have a better quality from indie brands and drugstore brands, for that matter, that's like less than half the price. So no, she went back to the store. Okay, and my number 13 spot is a Natasha Denona midi palette, and I can't remember exactly when this one came out, but it was definitely 2021, and this is the Zendo palette. Now the exterior of the palette is absolutely beautiful. I love the color. I love the aesthetic of everything. To be completely honest with you, when I seen the Zendo palette, I was most excited about the cool tone side of it because I wanted more cool tone shadows in my makeup collection. And so I was like, this is perfect. It's Natasha Denona. I know the quality is going to be stellar. Well, there were a few shades in here that I was super excited about. Flow and Breath. Breath was super flaky and patchy, and Flow didn't really have very much pigmentation. And this color here, Mantra, it was also hard to blend. So 3 of the 6 cool tone shades that I was super excited about, for this palette, didn't blend very well to me. Now, everything else in this palette, in true Natasha Denona fashion, the formulation was good, but I think that we have things that look like this before. It was this side that really made the palette unique, and it didn't work out for me. And for $65, I feel some type of way about it. So that is why this is in my number 13 spot for the year, because of the price point and the shadows that I was super excited about. They just didn't work. Next, okay, this is where it actually starts to get hard because everything else that I tried out was good makeup. So I'm going to give you the reason why it's in the spot that it's in. So in my number 12 spot is the Juvia's Place the Rebel Army palette. And to be honest with you, I went out of my way to go find this color story because I don't have these color greens in my collection, and I absolutely had to have it. However, for the way I like to do my makeup, this isn't a complete palette. The price point is great. The formulation's great. I wish I had something that was a little bit more sparkly in this palette, and something like a mustardy brown color that's kind of in the Zendo palette, the brown that's in the Zendo palette, to blend as a transition. So I would have loved for this to be like a 6-pan instead of a 4-pan. And yeah, I'm honestly just being particular and justifying why it's in the number 12 spot. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the formulation in this palette, and the price point of Juvia's Place eyeshadow is stellar. In my number 11 spot is going to be a Pat McGrath quad. This is one of her luxury quads. And honestly, there isn't anything wrong with this eyeshadow palette. The only thing is that for me, again, I don't think that this is a standalone look. You can build up a color to make it deeper. You can go lighter to, you know, use the only brown shade as a transition color. So these are metallics and shimmers, and this is a new formula. This is the stellar standout of this entire palette because this is a new formulation that we've never seen before from Pat McGrath, and that is really exciting. And honey, it is the bomb. Like, I bought the palette for this shade, to be completely honest with you. I do think that she doesn't get enough love from YouTube, other YouTubers on this particular palette. Is absolutely beautiful. However, I'm going to put this in my number 11 spot again because I'm basing this off of an overall user experience. Does it inspire me? Is it a standalone palette? The price point, everything is taken into consideration. So it's in my number 11 spot. Okay, so in 2021 for my birthday, I picked up some Mothership palettes. Actually, they were birthday gifts from my friend Sheena and my husband. The number 10 spot for me is going to be my Mothership 1 eyeshadow palette. These two palettes were purchased because I wanted to complete my Mothership collection. I have all Mothership palettes in my collection. Now, you know Pat McGrath, the quality in her Mothership palettes are second to none. It's absolutely beautiful. It's just that this particular color story doesn't do the most for me. The wow factor in this palette is a blue shade, and honey, it is a Blitz Astral shade, and it is absolutely gorgeous. I have no other blue color in my collection like it, but because that is the only wow factor for me in this palette, it is going to be in my number 10 spot. However, she is absolutely gorgeous. In my number 9 spot, I ranked the Mothership 2 that I got also for my birthday a little bit higher because she, you know, she does it for me just a little bit more. But these are not my favorite Pat McGrath Mothership palettes. These are collection completion palettes. This is the Mothership 2. Oh, and yeah, they lost some points for that. So I just need to glue down that particular shade. But the two shades that really do it for me are this beautiful gold shade and that green shade. That green shade is everything. I have a few from Pat McGrath that come close to that green, but these are shades, just wow shades. Again, everything else like this 6 over here, we can do some beautiful eyeshadow looks, but it's not anything super unique, and I could probably dupe these shades in my collection. So that one is in the number 9 spot. In my number 8 spot is gonna be something that came out earlier this year. I believe this was a 2021 quad release from Pat McGrath. This is also a Luxe quad. This is the Divine Rose Luxe quad, and I absolutely love this pink color story. I know it's not for everybody. This is a complete look for me. I can create a whole eyeshadow look with everything because we have two mattes, a lighter and a deeper. We have a metallic and a that looks like a shimmer shade. But I absolutely love this quad, and the color story is the reason why, and the fact that I can do a complete look. That is why this palette is in my number 8 spot. Okay, in my number 7 spot is my first full-on Charlotte Tilbury palette. And this is the Smoky Eyes Are Forever. And don't let the fact that it's in my number 7 spot fool you. This is a great eyeshadow palette. You can do so many different looks with this palette. I don't necessarily like the packaging of this palette, the small, skinny pans. It very much so gives me 2012 Urban Decay Naked palette vibes. The only colors that I'm not too wowed by are the first two in the palette. Everything else is absolutely beautiful. This is a complete palette. I can do so many things with this eyeshadow palette. It is very spendy. I believe it's $78. However, the color story is good. It doesn't necessarily get my creative juices flowing as much as some of these other ones do. So that's why this one is in my number 7 spot. In my number 6 spot is the palette that I have on my eyes right now. The packaging is great. Patrick Ta's debut palette. This is the Patrick Ta Major Dimension Eyeshadow Palette. You are getting 10 regular eyeshadows and 2 cream shades. I absolutely love the creativity in putting these 2 cream shades. I did use this color to deepen the outer corner of the eye and also as a base. And I used 4 other shades to create the eyeshadow look that you see here today. I have used this palette on my channel before in a tutorial, and I honestly really love the practicality of this palette. And people really love neutrals. Neutrals will never die. A good neutral palette, which this one is, and they'll cater to multiple different skin tones. This palette is a good workhorse neutral palette for most people. A great everyday palette. You can also glam this palette up as I did today. And I actually really like this palette, and I love the creativity with putting the creams in it. I don't like the price point. The pressed glitters and metallics in this palette did not have a lot of fallout at all, and I really like this palette. I really like this palette, and I pulled it out again today to kind of confirm where I stand with it, and it's a great neutral palette if you're looking for one. In my number 5 spot, I'm going to go ahead and select my Natasha Denona Retro palette. Now, everything in this palette is stellar as far as formulation is concerned. The price point for Natasha Denona is stellar. I love the midi palettes from her. I'm really glad that she's continuing to give us more of the midi palettes. This palette did not disappoint. However, I do know some were disappointed with it being retro glam. It didn't really follow suit of the mini retro glam as far as the color story is concerned. But for me, I didn't buy the mini retro because it wouldn't suit my skin tone. So I love the fact that this is a neutral to cool, and I wanted to add more of this into my collection, and it's a stellar palette. The reason why it's in my number 5 spot is because I don't get fidgety and super excited all the time about it. However, the formulations in here is in true Natasha Denona fashion, absolute stellar quality. My number 4 spot. This is my first palette from Huda Beauty. I was so pleasantly surprised, again, with either good formula or good color. Now, the formulas in this palette are not bad. It's just that, like the matte colors, they don't blend like your Natasha Denona or your Pat McGrath. This is a $29 price point. I do think that Huda Beauty has stepped up her quality on her eyeshadows. Huda had a great year, in my opinion. Now, let's talk about the color story. This color story is for me. Like, this is a color story. I feel like it's made for me. I love every single color in this palette. This is why it's in my number 4 spot, simply because I love, like, that purple, this red, that bronze. Honestly, I can do so many looks with this eyeshadow palette, and the price point is great. And when I tried it out in a video, I mean, honey, the purple is drop dead. I'm going to keep circling back to this purple. This is an amazing purple. One of the prettiest purples that I have in my collection. It's giving my Pat McGrath Synthetica a run for its money. I cannot rave enough at how this palette gets me giddy and excited. In my number 3 spot, you guys, things are getting real tough. But I'm just going to keep it honest with you guys, because I don't want to rank something just because of the name of just because the brand. I'm gonna go ahead and rank my Pat McGrath Huetopian Dream in my number 3 spot. And you guys know how I feel about my Mothership palettes. And honestly, I absolutely love these eyeshadows, and the color story is absolutely stellar, and I love everything about it. I love Pat McGrath, her graphics, her creativity, everything about Huetopian Dream. Honey, I was giddy and excited for the release. However, it's just tough out here. I have another palette in my number 2 spot that gets my creative juices flowing just a little bit more. than this one. However, you know, when it comes to Pat McGrath, the quality that you're getting, the color story on this palette. I mean, everything about this palette, I created some beautiful looks with this palette. I do wish that the purple in this palette wasn't as translucent. It's a great topper special shade. I do wish that it had the opacity of the purple that's in the HUDA Beauty that I ranked in my number 4 spot, but it's all good. I have created some beautiful looks with this palette. Every time that I wear the top 5, every time I wear these palettes, I get so many compliments and questions about my eyeshadow. And Huetopian Dream is a great palette, and I love this palette. It was a great addition to the Mothership lineup. But in my number 2 spot is a palette that I was never disappointed in the color story. I knew that when I seen the color story, I knew that hands down I was going to get it. The issue is that I was concerned about some of the colors not being recommended to use all over the eye. And this palette has so much creativity in it, and the possibilities for me to create is endless, and that's why it's in my number 2 spot. This is the ABH Norvina palette, volume 5, and wow. The color story on this bad boy. It is a beauty. I can do so many looks with this palette. The only shade I'm gonna say I don't really care for is this color here. This is a straight up glitter color, and I don't really do glitter, straight up glitter like that anymore. I could just sit and play all day. There's so much in this palette for me to do. I don't ever see myself getting bored with it, and I get excited whenever I use it. I get excited when I see it, and it gets my creative juices flowing again. And that's why this palette is in my number 2 spot. And I absolutely love that Norvina did a purple palette. We don't get purple palettes too often in the makeup community, and they gave us one, and I'm so excited about it. I have created several looks with this palette. I do know that I said that I was concerned about use around the eyes, but I've personally not had any issues. I do tend to get a little bit sensitive with pinks and reds around the eye, but purples, not. I haven't really had any issues at all. So yes, the ABH Volume 5. Wow. Last but not least, in my number 1 spot for 2021, my most favorite palette, the palette that gets my creative juices flowing the most and that I get the most excited about, is the Pat McGrath Celestial Odyssey Holiday 18 Pan palette. The looks are endless, the quality is stellar, and I really love Pat McGrath's 18 pan. And furthermore, I love the fact that you get so much Pat McGrath at the price point that you get. That's also a factor in my ranking as well. But honey, if you don't have it yet, I highly recommend that you go ahead and get it, because once it's gone, it's gone. I have to. So there you go. Citrine Envy, Noir Moon, the matte shades in this palette are absolutely stellar. This shade, I mean, there's just so many eyeshadows in here to create beautiful neutrals. You can do neutral, you can do glam, you can do eclectic, you can do all different kind of looks with this palette, and the price point is amazing for Pat McGrath quality. And I cannot rave enough about this palette. It's my favorite, and I have used it multiple times on and off camera. And you guys let me know if you picked this up, and if you haven't, I highly urge you go ahead and get it, because I do believe that Pat McGrath Holiday 18 pans are something special for beauty lovers, because you know, we get 18 shadows for $70-something, which is crazy for Pat. So yeah, I hope that you liked my ranking. Let me know if you agree or disagree. I would also love it if you told me what was your favorite palette of 2021. You know what mine was. I want to know what yours is. So until the next video, fam, I will see you later. Bye.